Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is the 31st of May, year 2023. I hope everyone is having a fantastic day. We were just getting started, so let me introduce you to our panel. We have Patricia here, who is part of a core group of meditators. Good evening, Patricia. Then we have Michelle here, who also is part of a core group of meditators, and Rob, who is an author of a book, Stop Thinking, and has been joining us on a regular basis recently. So since we don't have April, Michelle is going to hold her question. So let's start with I'll start with you with Rob. The question I have, and this is something we discussed. I was actually going to discuss it last week, but we went in the direction of what Michelle was asking April, so I didn't ask this question. So I don't know if Patricia remembers, not last week, but the week before, during group meditation, we were talking about this thing, and it also goes back to, I recently posted, let me find that post. The question is intertwined with the post that I had posted, and the post was, where Eckhart says, the fact is, whatever you think the world is withholding from you, you are withholding from the world. You're withholding it because deep down you think you are small and that you have nothing to give. Try this for a couple of weeks and see how it changes your reality. Whatever you think people are withholding from you, praise, appreciation, assistance, loving care, and so on, give it to them. You don't have it. Just act as if you had, and it will come. So the discussion we had during group meditation was around we had this thing that a lot of people have this limiting belief, which even I had that limiting belief as I was growing up. And now when I look back on how my mom was, I do believe, I'll take back why I think my mom was very loving. But the question I had was, we have the limiting belief that our parents never loved us. They never touched us in a loving manner. They never took care of us in a loving manner. So, and it all ties back into this, Eckhart is saying this is like the fundamental principle of law of attraction. If we cannot have gratitude for our childhood, that our parents loved us. My take on all this is, if we cannot have that gratitude for the fact that our parents had us, right? We owe this life, this thing that we call me, mine, I owe this life because my parents got together, right? The gratitude starts right at that point, that the parents got together and I have this life. So how can I not initially first actually have that gratitude itself, right? That's the initial gratitude. And then people have this, oh, my mother did, even I had this, that my mother did not love me. And I'll tell, after you respond, I'll tell what I told everyone during group meditation, what I feel about my mother now. Go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you for having me. What a great question.
Mm-hmm.
The gratitude that we don't express is usually because we're consumed with the small I, the ego, and we have forgotten the depths of who we truly are. And you clearly brought that up. If it wasn't for the parents that bring us into this world, whether they're our biological parents or It doesn't even matter which parents bring you into this world. We owe some sort of vibrational gratitude, not physical gratitude. We don't have to repay anyone in the physical realm, but vibrationally, mentally, spiritually, we do owe that. We owe our entire life. In my circumstance, the spinal injury that I had, suicidal depression. I'm naming off a bunch of bad things because this is usually where people start. They say, I have a horrible life. My parents didn't do me very good. You know, this job of mine's not working out, and on and on and on. And I was definitely one of those people. I read all of these books and surrounded myself with different thinking people, and I decided to act out and embody those teachings that I did not believe in back then. None of them made any sense, and it was all lip service. When my spine was injured, I was frustrated and I wasn't grateful, and I still woke up every day and I said, I'm going to do this thing that all of these spiritual leaders tell me to do, which is to be grateful, have gratitude. And I didn't focus on the weakness. I focused on the divine possibility of the miraculous healing. And so every day I would say, thank you for a healed spine. Thank you for the pain, so that now I'm going to know what it would feel like to have either one of those. If I only had the wonderful spine and never experienced the debilitating spine, I wouldn't have that to compare to. So that this, and then I eventually got to the point where the suffering, I was grateful for the suffering, grateful for the disparities, the polarities, the north and south, the hot, cold, the good relationships, bad relationships, the places that I seemed intelligent in and the places that I didn't seem gifted in. And I lost that sense of egoic self that said, why don't I have it better? And I realized that sense of egoic self was really, it was standing on a platform of how do I look compared to the world, rather than how do I truly feel as a divine expression of the one consciousness that came here to express myself uniquely. The oak tree that has the weight of the snow that breaks the branch off of it doesn't say, hey, how come that tree over there didn't have its branch broke? No, the tree with the broken branch is just as beautiful and sends out just as much of a wonderful vibration out to the universe as the tree that is fully symmetrical and has all the branches perfectly aligned. And when I realized that my unique expression of the one consciousness, me being as unique and divine as I possibly can be, as I've been given, is the ultimate gratitude. To be uniquely divine me is saying back to the universe, thank you. This is who I am. I'm no longer comparing, and I'm no longer looking through the eyes of other people or what I think other people might have that I don't have. And the comparisons, the judgments, and the labels left me. And that took quite a while. That was 2 or 3 years in the making. In the last year, I would say I did a lot of lip service. It didn't seem like it was working at all. I just would wake up in the morning and say, I'm healthy and I'm happy, and then I would not feel well. I finally made it to this point where something shifted in my mind, and gratitude is just a way of living, and it absolutely is. Even today, actually, this is an interesting synchronicity. Today, I realized that the gratitude that I expressed, that I started expressing years ago, maybe one solid year ago, all the lip service gratitude. I realized I was still doing that, and I didn't need to do that now. Now I'm vibrationally gracious, and I feel it, and I don't need to express it all the time in my mind. I don't need to make the mental shift anymore. I feel like my mind is in tune with the divine uniqueness of me. So the old self is worried about all these kinds of things. Oh man, you lost all the hair on the top of your head, or you're not as academically inclined as the next person, or your career status, and all of that goes away. And now I don't need to do all that lip service. Now I can just be vibrationally gracious. And I think a lot of people might, especially I did, get that confused. So we get it confused. We say, listen, I walked over to my neighbor 12 times yesterday, and I said hello, and I shook their hand, and I did all these grateful things. And when I woke up, I was very gracious, and I said, thank you for my body. But what I think we sometimes miss is we still have a vibration within us that is not really gracious. It's more extracting. It's more give me. I'm giving to the universe physically. I want something physically to come to me, and I don't think it really works that way. I think we need to give vibrationally, and we need to give as the one consciousness, and then we might see something coming back to us. But that's the last thing. It makes no difference if something comes back to me. And I'll give one more quick example. When my daughter was nearly 3,000 miles away, I decided that I was going to open up a vibration of graciousness for having her in my life, even though she didn't want to be with me, went through a divorce, she didn't want to have anything to do with me, didn't speak to me, answer text messages, phone calls. And I told myself that no matter what, I'm going to stay gracious. And I'm going to send love to her from 3,000 miles away. And I made it known in my mind that if our relationship is never restored, that's okay, because I need to set the example right here and be who I want the world to be, and be the kind of person that I would want someone to be to me, even if I didn't have it. And I have one more thing, if you don't mind, if I could just speak to my father's love. I thought my father, I grew up needing to be someone. Egoically, I needed to be a status in order to earn my father's love. And I noticed that. He taught me that as a kid. Not his fault. That's his level of consciousness, and that's where he was. I love him to death, and he loves me, and that's fine. But he was teaching me this egoic way of, I will send you love, Rob, if you become a lawyer or a businessman or have some kind of status. And so I worked and worked and worked in the physical realm to make my father love me. And then I realized I need to give myself the love that my father could not give me. And I had no clue how to do that. How do I give myself love that I don't even know how to get? But I figured it out. It was in the silent meditation that Eckhart Tolle and all of the spiritual people talk about. I got really quiet, and I found that peace and that love and that stillness. And no longer did I need anything from my father. He didn't need to change. I didn't even need to forgive him. It just happened. And so vibrationally, we need to be gracious. It starts in the physical, practice in the physical, say all the lip service we can, and eventually the body caught on, and I've become a much more gracious person. That's my story. I hope that helps.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Rob. So how did you know or come to the inner knowing that your parents, yeah, initially you may have said that your parents did not love you, or you felt like not enough love of your father. How did you come to the knowing that, yes, he did love me? That was his way of showing that he was loving me by asking me. You know what Eckhart says, Rob, is in chapter 4 of A New Earth, Playing Roles. He says a parent is always looking for they're deriving their sense of self-esteem from their child. So how well you do as a person. If you were a lawyer, you were successful, then they're deriving their sense, oh, look at me, I'm the father of Rob the lawyer, part of this certain firm, the lawyer firm that's so famous, right? Like whatever you may call the lawyer firm, like the Kardashian firm, or who was the person that defended validation. That's what Caesar said. So how did you come to the conclusion that in spite of all that unconsciousness from your father, he still, in your inner core that I just want people to go back into their childhood and know that there were times, and this is something that Byron Katie also says, there were times that your parent did love you, but you are ignoring it because you're labeling them. You're putting like this huge paintbrush and saying, they never loved me. They never did. But I know, and Byron Katie says the same thing. I mean, people say the same thing, that yes, they did love. There is no way that that bond was not there. Even no matter if you're a parent that is addicted to alcohol, your alcoholic parent, your drug addict parent, your whatever, your physically disabled parent, somehow the connection is always there between the child, especially the mother. The father can be there, but the mother is umbilically connected to the child, so we'll always have that love. So go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, I think the biggest thing for me, maybe that helped me to see that, was becoming a parent. No, not becoming a parent, having life as a parent destroyed. Divorce, and recognizing that I followed all of these principles that the world, religion, God, the school, government, society, everybody says, here's a certain things, and my father, and I tried to follow all of these steps, and then my life fell apart, and I thought, oh my gosh, I followed all the steps, and I wound up doing to my children what we all have the possibility to do to our children, which is make mistakes. And I guess I had an awakening or an enlightening moment, and I realized that I made a lot of mistakes with my children, and I need to learn how to make sure that I don't send them any more of that violent vibrations that I had before. And I guess I flipped it around and I said, well, my parents are doing the same thing. They did the best that they could. They followed all of their rules and learned from all of their things. So maybe that's where it came from. I'm not 100% sure.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ram. So the response I had was, and I think it actually struck a chord with Patricia when she heard it. What I saw was, now my bond with my son is unconditional. I mean, I have like ever since he was a baby, my focus has been on him, like how I'm gonna bathe him, how I'm gonna feed him. As soon as I came back from work, I would like dedicatedly, I would go shower, come back, and immediately he was my focus. I was feeding him, cleaning him, whatever, like until his bedtime. And as soon as he woke up, the first thing he looked for was, where's mommy? Like mommy had to be there, and mommy had to hold him for 15, 20 minutes. As a baby, as a 2-year-old, as a 4-year-old, as an 8-year-old, mommy had to, like an 8-year-old, I had to sit beside him on the couch, and he would just put his head on my shoulder and like kind of like doze off kind of thing. But when I look back and see my behavior towards my child, I realized the way we kissed and the way the affection was exchanged, they were glimpses of, yeah, I exchanged that affection with my mother. It's not like I got how to take care of a baby by osmosis. It's handed down somehow, how much ever, all the years, the first 20 years, or until I had this kind of like awakening about her, or not so much awakening, this awareness about her and her unconsciousness through Eckhart's teachings. The way I love my son and the love that I got from my son is actually the love of my mother. And of course, my father, for the short duration, he was with me just for 8 years. So the short duration that my father was there. But I do know that how much ever I said that my mom did not, I had this story, the first 23 years of my life, that my mom never loved me. I know my mom loved me. Right? And that came from the unconditional love that my son showed me. How he would look at me, and I was his world. Like the moment, like he would wake up, I had to pick him up and put him in my arms and hold him in my on my shoulder, right? Like I had to cuddle with him. Like that unconditional love is a return of my mother's, would have been passed on from my mother. So how much ever anybody says that they did not get the love, how did you love your children is my question. Or how did you love your pet? Where did that love come from? It's not osmosis. Somewhere it got transferred from your parents. The other story, derivative of that story was my mother didn't love me, and then she loved my brother more than me, was my other story that I used to, victim story that I used to tell myself. Because she did do a lot of things for him, but I do know that that contrast was given to me, like Abraham Hicks says. By the way, Caesar, you're here. I heard another person channel Abraham Hicks. I wanted to tell April and Nada as well, since they are Abraham Hicks, not so much as Abraham Hicks, they're an Abraham channeler. Did you know that? There's a second person that does channeling of Abraham. Okay, I'll move to you. That was my thing of how I knew that my mom loved me. And I know now in my heart, because of the love that the unconditional love and bond that is between me and my son, and it has been since he was a baby, but there's like a give. I've been that way with him, but there is like an incredible amount of, like as a baby, the way he would come to me, like if he had a fever, his mom had to come hold him. Like as long as I was holding him, he was okay. He was like the sweetest baby, never troubled me during his sickness, nothing. All I had to do was, like I was his panacea, but I know that panacea came from my mother to me. It's not so much as I knew how to take care of a baby. So you see the question, right? I posted on the chat, but tell me about this Abraham. How do you know that this second person channels Abraham?
So I don't know a whole lot about the person, but I have seen several videos. It's almost like watching Abraham. Pretty cool.
He's African American, right?
Yeah.
Franklin, Ben Franklin or something?
No, it is Benjamin.
John
Um,
Benjamin something. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But it's pretty amazing to watch for sure.
Go ahead. You want to answer the question?
Sure. So
Thank you.
Rob, I caught most of your story there, and it was beautiful and well expressed. So what I'm getting is like, I don't really believe we're taught how to love, but it's more of a recognition of, recognizing love. I mean, we are that, are we not? It is our very nature to love. And until you can really grip this, so we learn in different ways, whether it's through, the emotions, the deep, sincere outpouring of love for a pet or a brother or a mother. It is the same way you expressed your love for your child. This is just the recognition of love. I don't think it's anything further. Now, how we perceive the love based on, the conditioning that we're brought up in, is likely going to determine one's story moving forward, on their timeline, whether it be, I wasn't loved, I didn't feel loved, my mother loved my brother more than she loved I, and so on and so forth. But regardless, as we grow and seek inwards, we find this deep recognition of love, and it is expressed, the more we are tuned into it, in all that we do. As Rob was saying, the lip service, for gratitude and stuff. Agree. I 100% agree with that. And it's so like mind-boggling here that we're actually talking about this, because a new guy moved in on the street across from us, and he was telling me his story about how he wasn't loved as a child, and he's 50 some years old. And we've had several discussions in the past week or two, and I got him to read that book. And it's just amazing to watch, people go through this transformation, the shift, if you want to call it that. And I was just kind of making him aware that he is not his past, because he kept identifying with all of it. This is why I do this. This is why I do that. And this guy was an Army Ranger and seen a lot of things, and his PTSD and all that stuff going on there, and was, maybe bipolar and manic depressive and all that stuff. But literally watch this guy flip over in the past 2 weeks to where he's just this blooming bundle of gratitude and joy and love, and it's awesome. But getting back on the story here, so yeah, I think as we grow older and start to learn a little bit, because we're not taught this stuff in school. Let's face it, it's probably the most ridiculous thing ever in this world, that's kept from us, and I think it's an intentional thing. Personally, they don't teach us self-love. They don't teach us everything is in vibration, everything resonates at a frequency, and the self-love and stuff. Them are the most important things in life that we need to know and understand. We need to know that everything is energy. I didn't learn this until I was in my late 40s. That's a problem. I think this is all changing soon. And can you imagine the world for 1 minute if everybody can just stop and just picture, if everybody was on even a portion of this level and raised their kids consciously? What an amazing world I seen. I don't know if anybody's seen this. There was a little girl floating around on the internet with her mother several years ago. She was a little Asian girl, and it couldn't have been more than 4, maybe 5, but had a 10-minute, 15-minute long conversation with the mother, talking about how her and daddy need to bring it down here. You guys are up here. You need to come down. You guys got to be the love. And this is a 5-year-old. You couldn't script this. This wasn't written. This wasn't planned or anything like that. This was this little girl that was raised on one of the parents. They were separated, but the kid was raised by one of the parents, obviously, that was coming from this place of pure consciousness. And this kid just got it. You can't I mean, teach us. It's there. You're just trying to bring it out. Same way we're talking about the recognition of love. And the words that were coming out of this 5-year-old's mouth floored me. I encourage everybody. I'm going to find it. I'll send it to you guys if you'd like. But just Google 5-year-old girl, 5-year-old Asian girl has a conscious conversation with mother. And I'm sure it'll pop up in a million different ways. But it is literally incredible. So there's the, other end of the spectrum where a child was taught to realize what love is. You can't fall in love. You can't learn to love. You can't fall out of love. You are love. So it's nothing more than a recognition again. And this is my opinion. But it's just that. And the way, again, that we carry ourselves through our timeline is based on them first 7 years that, what's put into that subconscious is then expressed, until we seek otherwise and then make obvious changes. But we're all pretty much in our, latter years here. And at some point we decide to turn inward and want to know what this is about, what is life. And it usually takes a tragedy or a trauma or deep suffering to get on this journey of what is this all about. And it proves that the hardest, darkest times, I speak for a lot of people when I say this, understandably, is that the harder the trauma or trial, suffering, etc., leads us to our greatest lessons, hands down, not even a question. And so I look back and I'm grateful for the most hurtful times in my life. And, when we stop blaming ourselves and others for things, then we start to understand the nature of love. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? It doesn't matter why. And again, it's just my opinion. It is what it is. You can obviously learn a lesson and not repeat that. Logic would tell us. But, at the end of the day, it's just, it's our human nature to love and express that. And that comes out in, joy, happiness, gratitude, and all that we do. So I used to be the lip service gratitude as well, Rob. And I just wanted people to know, I was sincere about it, but I find these days is to show an act of gratitude instead of telling them, show them. And you don't have to say nothing, words, because it is through our actions that other people will learn from our journeys. You can plant seeds verbally all day long. And if, 9 out of 10 times that person may not be ready to fully sprout from the seed that you planted, but later on, the soul will take what it needs to take based on something somebody had said and utilize that and begin to blossom and grow. It's happened to me. It's happened to many people I know. Just like reading the book, I'm sure all you have. It's like, I try to tell people today when they read the book, just blow through it the first time. Your soul will pick out everything that it needs at exactly the time it needs to pick it out. You might not get anything right off the bat because what people tend to do is try to understand everything all at once. And then, of course, this information is a means to death to the egoic mind. So it wants to either put up a fight and say it's too complicated, it's confused, and I just give up, or it likes to go into flight mode and just simply put the book down and you run. And I think Eckhart really expresses that in the first couple of chapters of the book, and he's making you aware of that. So, it's important just to pound through it, and then you can come back and read it, and chances are you're going to read it 100 times or so. But in everything that we do, the lessons are already there. And so my quote Tolle is saying that if Jesus stood before you today, there's nothing he could teach you spiritually that you don't already know. He would simply be reminding you of what you have forgotten. And that's going back to the whole essence of our conversation about got to do with love. It's there. We are that when we are born. And then we become this expression of our personalities, in a way, because that's how we know we're having this experience is through our senses. And if we can express love as we understand it, then other people can actually feel that love. And it's not just a word to them. I love you. Don't tell me, show me. It was, I married for 20 years and, we fell out of love or something. And, I see friends go through it too. And you can't make somebody love you. If they don't recognize the love within themselves, then it's going to be difficult for them to love you. If you don't love yourself, how are you going to express the love? You don't even know what it is. You think you know, but most people get that confused with attachment. So, back to the basics. So depending on how we are taught to understand love as a child, whether we really, it's almost impossible for a parent to not love a child unconditional. Perhaps they just don't know how to express it as they should or as we'd like them to. But deep down, I can probably speak for everybody that the parent absolutely 100. Now there might be grudges. I don't want to see my kids because it reminds me of the mother, or the kid ripped me out. Whatever the case may be, that's all just lip service in the end. Deep down, there is a passion. There is a love. You have this deep connected bond with the child, and again, Poonam hit it on the head. They're connected umbilically. How can you not? So understanding that we are vibrational beings and we are connected to everything that is, including the children that we bear and raise, and have the responsibility to teach them how to love, plain and simple. And the better you can do that as a parent early off, chances are that child is going to move forward in a loving way that is able to be expressed at a high level. Fares better for the person as far as peace and stuff like that goes. And many people probably learn it better through a pet, honestly, than they do with, drug addicted or alcoholic parents. Because once the parent is altered in that sense, it's very difficult for them to show the child they love them. They're going to tell them all day long. But when a kid's 10 years old and they see mommy or daddy fall down in their face or not bringing home food or staying away for days at a time, it's hard for that child to really believe that the parent really loves them, even though they're altered or sick, however you want to put it. So I guess that really determines everything. Some people will be raised in not such a loving way with maybe addicted parents, and they'll do just the opposite with their kids. But then you have the other end where the kid will actually repeat what it was taught and show that difficult expression of love. And it may be out of fear or anger or regret. I'm not sure. But love is just a beautiful thing, no matter how you slice it. And until we realize what love is and that we are that, it's difficult to express. So I guess that's all I have.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Caesar. And the reason why I was repeating Abraham's name was the moment I said that the other limiting belief I had was that my mother loved my brother more than I realized from Abraham's term of saying the contrast is given so that we can send that rocket of desire to move to another state of consciousness. And the contrast was given so that I could send the rocket of desire to leave and be here in the United States. If not, I would never have, if my mom was loving towards me and unconditionally, and everything was soft and it was like a Hawaiian tropical environment, spa kind of environment, why would I want to leave and come to the US and struggle here, right? So
what an absolute blessing that is. And that just validates everything that everybody of the great spiritual teachers speak of, is that everything happens in the exact timing that it's supposed to happen. And the reason is always you. Mm-hmm. Everything happens for a reason. Well, that reason always is you.
It's happening for our, the universe is always working in our favor, as Abraham Hicks
100%.
says, right? I'll read what Karina said. Karina says, our parents hold the divine energy and gets passed to us when we were born, grateful forever. And Kimberly said, gratitude is not an easy idea to learn and understand. It took me dying almost 4 times to be really grateful to be alive. Incredibly amazing. Welcome back, Caesar. Thank you so much for all your input. So grateful for it. Michelle, did you want to talk about this? Did you have this limiting belief, and how did you overcome it if you have the limiting belief? Thank you.
Yeah, the responses have been amazing, very enlightening. My experience, I didn't have that limiting belief. I was raised in a pretty stable household. Both my parents stayed together until my dad passed away in 2016. That doesn't mean that there weren't the dysfunctional arguments and stresses and arguments. And I remember many times when you would be hearing the chaos, not understanding. My siblings were like 5 and 7 years old. I was the youngest of 3. I didn't understand what they would be arguing about. All I could feel was the negative energy and the vitriol, right? Being said to one another, and my mom closing herself in the bathroom, and my dad shouting, and just wanting, like, I would say to myself, I'd rather live in a separated household than have to deal with this all the time. So those were the moments where I felt, not that I wasn't in a loving environment, not that I didn't feel love from them. I never questioned that they loved me. And I think as you grow older and you go through your own things in life and your own sufferings, you are able to see things through a wider lens, a wider perspective. So when you're young, you go through this stage, the teenagers, it's all about me, right? Life is, I'm the sun, everybody should be circling around me. And that's the immaturity, right? That is an age, right? You have to become somebody before you can become nobody. That's living in somebody, so when they don't do something exactly the way you want it, you grow impatient, or you're a victim because they should have done this, so I could have had the opportunity to do that. But I never questioned their love for me. And then as I grew older, the things that they found important in life didn't resonate with me. Again, I'm always, I've always had this tendency to put myself in other people's shoes. How would I be if I had grown up in the 1940s, right? Having experienced being a child of parents that had to immigrate from Poland or Lithuania, because they were being persecuted, and that fear that was instilled in them, right? And then having to leave another country, right? And then coming to this country to, also, escape persecution from communism. And so all this fear based in the ancestral line, right? Like, how would you show love? Well, you would make sure that there's food on the table, right? That's the language of their love, is make sure they feel secure. They have a house. I mean, my parents lived in the same house for 50 years, right? It's like, you don't like, everything's fine. It's stable, like offer stability, offer security. He worked really, really hard. My dad had a small business and he worked from like morning to night. He didn't go out with friends. It was all around the family unit. Even if there was dysfunction, no, there was no alcoholism. There was none of that. But there was like this, maybe the fear of maybe money, like you want to make sure you have, right? So, but every child in that family unit is different. I mean, I never had this sense of entitlement. I never had this sense of victimhood, but other siblings in my family have had that. So maybe because he was 7 years older and took the brunt of that energetically, who knows? I don't know. And maybe if you ask one of my siblings that same question, they'll have a different answer, right? So, but I don't find that. I mean, I think if we're able to have that wisdom and that compassion to be able to look at how they were raised and what circumstances they grew up on, and this is what they offered, right? And hopefully every generation we grow and learn, right? my family was rather, we were, you kissed hello, or you came, you didn't see them all, you kissed hello. So there was a lot of like bodily, closeness, versus some other traditions of other cultures that, it's like, you don't say I love you, or um, you don't hug, or you don't, you know what I mean? You don't cry. That wasn't like the way I grew up, so, so it was more expressive, even though if it could have been, volatile sometimes, but I think it's really important as like having a loving household. So it's not only about the love that they share with you, but if there are two parents in the household, how do they relate to each other? How do they show love with each other, right? How do they respect each other, right? I mean, it's not to say that you're perfect and you're never going to raise your voice and you're never going to have a discussion or even a heated discussion because you're passionate about something, but that they feel the love within the household, I think is also important, because I think that from an emotional standpoint, that offers a sense of stability for the child, But I think compassion is really, really key, because if we're able to see that, then the love flows much easily, much more easily,
Amazing. Thank you so much, Michelle. Grateful for the insights. I feel what you said, that putting the food on the table, that's something that Byron Katie says, that if your mother or father were alcoholic, at least they clothed you or gave you food, or that's their way of having that minimum of awareness to make sure that you're taken care of. That's how they are expressing their love. That's their level of consciousness, and that's the only way they know how to express their love, right? So beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Patricia, did you want to say something about this? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Very good insights, very interesting sharings. Thank you. So there's different levels that I'm seeing at this point. I'm still not over this. I think there's still part of me that's holding on to that belief. Because according to Marianne Williamson, every lesson in life is a lesson on forgiveness. That's what I heard, and it stuck with me. So, and from Rupert Spira, he said that only love is true. Everything else is an illusion. So looking at my parents from this perspective, so we all made of love. We are our love. It helps me to forgive them for their humanness mistakes. But when I was younger, I could only see the bad, and I guess that was the brain. The human brain has this bad habit, I guess. It's like the primitive brain is choosing only the negative, paying attention, maybe giving attention to negative, because the negatives are they have to know what to do and judge if it's good or bad, because if it's bad, you need to protect yourself from it to survive. And then you have to put energy there. If it's loving, it's good. You relax. So there's nothing to mobilize attention, to give the extra energy and power. So maybe that's why we tend to remember maybe this more, and it becomes totality. And I think for me, it was very hard to see that there is both. There are moments when they were purely loving. There was tenderness and care. My father working so hard in socialistic Poland and learning English, and he did it to provide for us, so we don't have to worry about food on the table. So that was him loving us. But when he was coming home stressed out and yelling at me for spilling my cocoa, that was not love. So it didn't make sense to me that was like mixed messages. And then I felt that, not knowing that, you know, we are all love and this is just a human karma being played out because they didn't know better. They were not really taught or provided different examples of love. And because of that, I got also taught that conditional patterns that now I have to unlearn, but that's my soul's contract. So when April was talking about the soul's contract, that, you know, we choose our parents, they choose us, we kind of have that group of souls that in each lifetime we play different roles. It was so fascinating because that helped me forgive my parents on the level that I needed to forgive, because then once I really read Power of Now, I understood that once you realize that people act out of the level of consciousness, and if they were not conscious in that moment, when my father was hitting me and being like 10 times bigger, because I don't know, I didn't say good morning or something so ridiculous, that was not love, and he acted out complete unconscious. But his father left, his mother left him. He actually did not have parents, like you said, to teach him how to love. So where did he learn how to love me? I don't know, that was, you know, his lessons in life. So it's very hard, and I have certain memories that are still embedded in me, and now I'm looking at it differently. But one of the first memories that I have, I was very, very little. I was probably like 3 years old or something. And my mom was holding me in her hands, and my father was trying to grab me from her. And I was just like pushing him away, turning myself toward my mother. It's like, Mommy, it's like in Polish, obviously, can you kill him? Kill him. I don't want him. Kill him. It's like, I was trying to ask her to protect me from him, from this negative. I don't know what it was about. I don't remember. But then he was laughing. It was laughing for him that his little girl, you know, is begging a mother to kill him, right? It was so that was like a traumatic experience for me that stayed with me. And we were talking about the myth of normal, the book that I got, Terry suggested, that really brings me back to my parents. So right now, that's a great subject for me, because I'm looking back again in certain moments and looking for that love and seeing it from a different perspective, questioning, and actually saying they were so unconscious in that moment. So I can't judge them and hold them to it. All it is just understanding and forgiveness, because of understanding that we are love and we are those souls that decided to teach each other a lesson here in this lifetime. So it's just depending on me and my level of consciousness in the moment when we're talking about it or when I read it, because certain things just hit me so deeply. And first is that I have to touch that pain there, suffering, and pain body comes up. But because of this group and the meditations and on the information that I got from spiritual teachings, I'm able not to identify myself with it. So it's like almost I'm not that memory that didn't change the love that I am, or that I can love my daughter. But yeah, I'm not necessarily agreeing that they taught me how to love my daughter. It's just that I see that they are love, and there were moments when they were not identified with their egos. We're just able to act out of this pure love that they are. And other moments, the ones that I also remember more vividly because of that emotional charge of it, there are moments when they're unconscious. And these are the moments that I need to forgive them for. So that's it's not like I can't say either black or white, that they were either love or they were either bad, because that's what my brain wants to label them one way. They didn't love me or they love me. But it's the way, you know, I see it, and it depends on my consciousness in that moment that I can see that or not. And I'm still a little bit going back and forth, but I think I'm not as angry. I'm definitely not as angry as I was when I was a teenager, when my father decided to teach me lessons in character and take away stuff because I was defiant, which, you know, angry brain of a teenager is defiant because he's not fully developed, but he was trying to break me for it. Like, I need to be already mature 40-year-old man on my, you know, development. I can't be just a stupid kid saying something ridiculous. And he just was telling me publicly to shut up. He was just, I was so completely ashamed of speaking publicly because of those moments that he decided to teach me, you know, how to be a mature adult, when I was obviously an idiot teenager at that moment. And I was supposed to be an idiot because that was my time to be an idiot. And so there's a lot of things. So he provided me with great spiritual food to digest, yes, and keep going.
So what I would say, Patricia, is the energy with which you talk about your dad and there's a charge to the energy.
It's still there. It was much worse. It's still, I feel it too.
There's a charge to the energy, and so your forgiveness. Remember Eileen last year? No, not last year, but the year before. So last year was 2022. 2021 July, I don't know why we started talking. Oh, somebody posted on Facebook about abandonment, and we started this abandonment conversation. We talked about it in July, August, September, maybe until December, January, we talked about abandonment. But because of that conversation during Facebook Live, both April and Eileen kind of understood that their mothers abandoning them was the perfect thing that needed to be done. And Eileen, in fact, told me last year in 2022, that was the first time her Mother's Day was the most peaceful. And then she said, now I really, what she said, maybe in January or something, or in one of the Facebook Lives, she said, now I finally understood that I thought I had forgiven her, but I had not. So you're almost in that kind of stage. You think intellectually that you have forgiven them, but you may not have forgiven them. And the only way that the forgiveness can happen is when you bring compassion to the fact that if he was abandoned by his parents and he had to struggle in his life in Poland during the time, maybe World War II was going on, during war times, during when there was nothing, people were not getting enough food, when people were struggling for food, how was he going to put food on the table? So he already had the pain body of abandonment in him.
He did.
Just like how Eckhart talks about his father and knows that his father was like the youngest of 6 or 7 children, and he was the only boy. And at 15, whenever the grandparents divorced, or maybe the grandfather passed away, the grandmother never just sent his father to go work and wouldn't allow him to go to school. So his father never got to finish school, had to provide for his family. And then he had to have Eckhart and provide for the wife and the kid, right? So Eckhart said that his hatred towards women turned him into a womanizer. So you kind of like begin to understand when there's a degree of presence, right? From presence, you see, what is this human story? Why did they become who they became, right? Why do they have the bipolar behavior? And just like my mother, right? When you're saying about publicly humiliating you, my mother, when I was maybe in 9th grade or 10th grade, she was a school teacher in the school that I was going to. And I was like teasing one of the guys in something was going on, like there was an event and I was teasing him or something. My mom, in front of everybody in school, she like slapped me. Like, talk about public humiliation. I was so humiliated. Thankfully, it was like the last year. So I'd never had to face all of those people. I mean, I did have, but like my best friend came console me and all that, right? But when I look back on her behavior, they cannot do anything different. Their pain body has taken over.
That's true, but
Patricia.
in that moment, there was no love. They
No,
were so
it's-
obscure by their ego.
Yeah, but doesn't mean that they don't
judgment.
love us. Doesn't mean that the core of who they are doesn't love us. You're looking at the surface, you're looking at what they're doing on the surface. Now imagine there's the pain body, there's the ego, and there's the inner being, right? Their pain body is doing something to you. You're judging what the pain body is doing to them, to you. You're judging them by what the pain body is doing. You're not seeing their inner
That's-
core
Yes, that's
in that moment.
but in those memories, that's what I saw. So I
But
didn't see the loving being. I saw just the
and what
unfairness and cruelty of.
And that's what you're judging. What you have to see is that there's still an inner being, and what they are trying to get you to do. One of the things that I know looking back, the compassionate answer I have for my mother, she was a single mother. There's this little girl that is turning into a teenager. She had to control this little girl, right? What if I get raped? What if I get pregnant? What if I have a relationship with a guy before I graduate? What is the worry that parents have about girls?
All of the above.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. I am a parent of a girl, so I know.
Can I just chime in for one quick second?
Go ahead, Caesar. Thank
you
you.
Patricia, you expressed that there were some good qualities of your dad and he did show you love on other occasions. Yes or no?
Yes. But what I was saying that, I'm still sometimes going back and forth that the bad ones are much more
Prevalent.
because of the negative, the way the brain.
Sure.
The-
But in this day and age, you do realize you have a choice on what to focus on.
Yeah.
So why are we continuing to focus on like what she's saying? And I gotta say, Poonam, just a beautiful, amazing story on, because I know your story and how you was raised, and to find that deep compassion that you have for your mother, was that actually the turning point that got you to just release all of that and find the pure acceptance within?
I'm not saying that I'm focusing on it. It's just that I think that from such deep childhood, it's still in as a pain body and it comes up. So I have to face it. I can just ignore it. And
you're putting a very strong, your verbiage and your language about it, your story about it, right? Like Eckhart says, don't label things. Your story about it is so vitriolic. Like it's filled with vitriol, which it may not be. It just may be this man is bipolar. Even he may have been bipolar then, and he doesn't know how to deal with a 3-year-old girl, and he's doing what he is doing, just having fun with you.
But all I have
Right?
is that perception of that memory on that.
But that's your story. That's your story. That's your story. If you look at from your mother's perspective or your father's perspective, they'd say, look at from the other perspective. your father would say, oh, I was just having fun with this girl. Your mother would say, she was just 3 years old. That's her father. It's okay.
So what do I do with that? It's my story, so my story doesn't
You have to
matter.
drop the labeling. You have to drop the vitriol behind the story. If you don't put that charge, if you don't put the charge on, you're putting a charge to it. You're saying, oh, it was so bad. I said kill him. And first of all, why is a 3-year-old talking about killing the parent?
That's the memory I have. I told you it was a
I mean,
traumatic.
look at your karmic accumulation that you have so
Having
much.
someone suffering and begging, it wasn't fun for me. He was laughing. It wasn't fun for me, and I am almost 50 years old, and I still have that memory. So how do I drop it?
Because you're putting a charge to it. You have to
I'm
drop
not
the
doing
story.
anything.
You look at your voice. You're putting a charge to it.
Because I'm just defending. In other words, like you're telling me that this is a reality, that it's not true, but it's actually creating a suffering in me still.
No, she's not saying it's not true, Patricia. She's just saying that when,
That I have a choice of putting a charge to it.
well, no.
Okay.
She's not saying you have a choice that you're putting in a sense, mildly, yes. But all she's trying to express to you is the contrast of what she's saying. So when she just said, like, if you can look at the way your father was, I thought that was beautiful. It really hit me like a ton of bricks when she was saying, look at the situation your father was in during the war, going through. How was love expressed to him that he in turn expressed it in almost a hateful way to you, right? So it's the blame thing right here. Again, we can't blame.
Compassion.
As
Yeah.
soon as you blame somebody or anybody, that's the negative charge that she's referring to, because it's holding on to the story and it's fueling it actually.
Mhm.
And it's getting deeper within you and it's becoming greater. It's growing. This has been growing, mind you, for 50 something years now. That's
Your pain
the
body is reliving it. Pain body is reliving it. And that's why the pain body is alive still, 50
So
years
you-
later.
yes, you have to change the story. So even though
I agree with you guys. That's why I started when my sharing that I'm still going back and forth. I'm very aware of this.
we see the suffering in you.
And it's just, yeah.
We see the suffering in you. I feel the suffering in you, and my heart is out to you fully. I'm sure as everybody, nobody here wants nothing more than to see you at peace with this. For those of us who actually know your story,
And it's been a while.
you are such
I did a lot of forgiveness meditations. I saw during the center of the magnet, loving, and I saw many moments, but yeah, it didn't
okay, but maybe that.
go away it.
How would you grade? Okay, I know a little bit about your emotions and your loving kindness and the way you love your daughter. How is it that you are able to love your daughter? I want to say this: nobody could love their daughter more than you love your daughter. True statement.
Absolutely.
How is it possible that this person that experienced so much hate, if we want to call it that, it was the lack of his ability to express what he knew as love or the lack of. So how is it possible that you're able to love so deeply and so passionate to your daughter when the contrast of what you experienced as his lack of love for you, or you might even view this as, you probably view it as hatred for a few instances, but try to go back and change the narrative of the entire story, the entire upbringing. Find the good, find the compassion. Like, even if it's only this big and you focus there, that's taking the negative charge away and instilling the positive charge by just seeking this much compassion that your father had. How long did your father, I'm curious if you don't mind answering, how long did your father spend in your life when you were a child? Was he there the entire upbringing? 5 years, 15 years, what?
Yeah, all the time.
Until
was
she
so
moved
much.
to,
He
until
was so controlling. It's like he wouldn't even let me go out. It was too
No.
much.
But see, now there is what we differentiate between what we consider love. My daughter told me literally she thought I hated her for being the strict parent that I was. She didn't understand my worry when you sneak out at 10 o'clock as a 14-year-old daughter that looks like they're 20. I'm worried about getting a phone call that she's in a dumpster at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
She viewed it the same way that you're viewing it, as hatred. I took the door off her room, took her mattress out of the room because had an ashtray in it, the TV. I sent her to a boot camp, for crying out loud. She really thought I hated it, but the day she turned like 20 or something, she called me in just pure gratitude saying, I thought you hated me. Thank you for being that way, because I recognized something when she had her daughter, that what she viewed as hatred coming from me was actually love and protected. So just because your father didn't know how to express the love for you, he protected you. He made sure there was food on the table. No,
That's very true, but there are moments like this is teenagers, I understand, but if I have memories of him hitting me for spilling by accident my cocoa, which was his thing, because I had to sit in the table and finish for 3 hours. It was torture every meal because he was force feeding me because I was not interested in food.
okay.
So how is that love? I mean, seriously.
But that
Listen,
may have been his own trauma.
Coming through him for
Right,
sure.
because he probably
We don't know
he
what
didn't have
we
enough food, right?
experienced.
He didn't have enough food on the table, so that's just showing. Consciously, probably not, but that's how he showed love. So there's this book, 7 Languages of Love. I haven't really read it, but everybody based on their past conditioning or their past experiences expresses love in different ways. Some people do it through service, some people do it through gifts, some people do it in different ways. So I wish I could have had this conversation with my father. He's passed now. But I think growing up, we take for granted. We hear some stories, but we don't pay much attention to their upbringing and their experiences because that informs them, right? That's their programming.
Yeah.
And they come to parenthood with that programming.
I think I came to this moment that I actually need to work on the fact that I cannot forgive him. The fact that he, being that smart and that's capable, did not work on this to heal
Okay.
him before he
But
passed
you,
it to me.
that's
and
your
but you
judgment.
are, but you
dumped
are
it on me
confusing.
and I have to have excuses for him, excuses because of compassion, because he was his job in this life to heal himself.
That's
before
your story. You're saying a story. You're back to a story, Patricia. Listen to us. You're back to a story. My mom was exactly like your father. I was terrified of her. She would hit me for nothing. Like I told you, even at 15, like she would be cooking, and if I did something while she was cooking, boom, 18, boom, one slap. Like there was no her pain body, but I had the compassion that it's their pain body. Like when I look back, they're totally overtaken by their pain body. How much of a pain body does he have? 2 abandoned parents, maybe not loving his wife that much. He's not getting any love back, right? But he took you out on vacation. You out on vacation.
There are moments I'm not able to feel it. There are moments when I see it and love him only. And I express it to you.
But
too.
that's your judgment of it, Patricia. Understand when that person, listen to what Eckhart says in The Power of Now. How can we judge their mental illness? When they're taken over by their pain body, they are mentally ill. Now, if somebody was physically disabled and they hit you, will you judge them? If you knew somebody was mentally,
I get in my victim mode and I just not conscious and I become my ego and my pain body.
so the only way for the pain body to release and process that emotion is to bring compassion that I see that his pain body He was taken over by his pain body at that moment. When I was 3, he was taken over by the pain body. When I spilled my cocoa, he was taken over by pain body. When my mom hit me when I was at that event, like she whacked me like in front of everybody. All my classmates, all my, like maybe there were 2 or 3 different classes there, and she whacked me, the pain body, and she would take pleasure in it, like punishing me. One day I forgot my homework, right? In her class itself, I forgot my homework. She punished me and sent me outside, we had to kneel down. I don't know if that's a punishment that y'all get over here.
I
But I
kind of
need-
understand it, but I just don't know how you can say that there is love in it.
In
I
that
don't know if
moment,
there is
in
any
that moment,
love
he's unconscious.
in it.
In that moment, he was unconscious.
Period. That's the
That's
So
it.
there was no love in it. So how he did not teach me love by being that. I needed to learn love by forgiving him.
Why
Not-
did you
how
need
is
to
that
learn
a
love?
lesson in love?
Why do you have to take that one incident and know that love is coming from him only because of that one incident? Or the 5 incidents, or the 10 incidents, or the 50 or 100 incidents? Why don't you see what you're focusing on? The wrong thing. You're not focusing on, he took me on vacations and I swam. I love swimming. I had a whole month of vacation. Look how loving that those times were. You're not seeing that.
Right, so I have a problem in how am I putting it in totality. I know that in those moments he loved me, but I know that he also, had moments when he didn't because he was unconscious. I just
Forgive him
can't
for
say
that.
that it was all love, because I do not agree
We are
that
not saying they're all love. What we are saying is they are love in their inner being. In that moment, the pain body has taken over. You're judging their pain body taking over.
Yeah.
Don't judge the pain body taking over. Just like your daughter shouldn't judge all the pain body moments that you had with her in the past. Now look at Julie. Would she judge you for all the moments that you had with her?
just want to know how to heal
Do you want her to forgive you?
moments. There are other moments that I remember. I have the memories, but the negative chart on those bad moments, bad memories is very intense though. The other that
You have to take that charge off.
Can I
you
offer
measure-
something? Can I offer something?
Go
Being that I
ahead.
just had I had a pain body attack this week, right, with my own son, who triggered me intensely. And the next morning I didn't sleep well, and I was just wanted to stay in bed under the covers, not move, but I knew that I had to move. And my husband said, go and work out, move your body, move that body so you can, because it's like gum stuck to your soul, right? And you need to extract that. And sometimes, even though I tried through meditation, I'm still in my head. I needed to energetically move that out. I needed to move the body. And once I did that and pushed my body, it helped to fuse it. It lightened the load so you could work on the rest, right? But sometimes, for me, that helps me, is moving the body.
notice
And not-
because muscle movements release that thing.
Exactly, the
Yeah.
serotonin and all of that stuff. So if you find yourself in a pit where you can't get out, try moving the body. Instead of thinking it through, maybe that'll give you enough impulse to be able to then work through. Because
Right.
when you started talking before initially, you were calmer. And as we continued the conversation, you got more triggered, right? So you get more in your head, more in your pain body. And and it kind of like you're in this tunnel and you can't see left and right. It's just this tunnel and it's taking you. So sometimes, I don't know, for me, even as much as I might meditate, I energetically, I just need to shift the energy in the body first.
So so why to even touch it? It's like, let it just be there in the past and
Yeah.
just why?
The bottom line is the essence of this group is presence power. And when you lack presence, the whole reason for the suffering is for not forgiving your father, not accepting what happened. And until that is 100% done, you will continue to suffer. That is a fact. That's just the cold hard facts. So what the advice that Poonam and was offering was, in essence, a way to get there in seeking that one little bit of compassion. That's all it takes.
Gonna wipe it, all the bad stuff.
Yes, yes. Just find that little ounce of compassion. And then within the compassion, you'll be able to find the forgiveness. You're not going to find the forgiveness through the anger. You cannot fight hatred with hatred and win. It doesn't work like that. It's the contrast. Only love can conquer hate. That's it. And you have to take baby steps to get there. And what she's offering you is the ability, the chance, the opportunity. You're just choosing not to do that. And it's not you that's choosing to not let go, not forgive. It's
The pain body.
old mind that has the grip on you that's choosing to hold on. And the awareness in you is the one that's struggling with this thing. I want to forgive him, but I just can't. And you've said that word but at least 100 times during this conversation. When somebody was offering you the advice, you would say, yeah, but no,
But
with the buts. Just say, I'm going to do this. Do you enjoy the suffering? And I'm not being a smart ass. I love you. I really do. And
I
my
was the queen of yes, but that's why, yeah, I was a lot
so
of
let's take
arguing.
that word right out of your vocabulary. Every time you say it, tell your daughter to pinch you or make you put a quarter in the jar and then split it with me in a week. But my point is, Patricia,
But you said but.
find the but in the good when there's negativity, when the narrative starts playing about the hatred, say, yeah, but you know what? But that one time he loved me. Or yeah, but hey, he took me on vacation. Yeah, but okay, I forgive him. Yeah, but I didn't know what he went through as a kid. Maybe he was beaten, tortured, and raped in the whole 9 yards. You don't know that. And he had so much anger built up in him that those around us get the wrath of that at times. It usually comes out on their kids because there's nobody else.
Mhm.
Can't take it out on the grown wife. She'll leave and take all his money. So the point is just focus the energy on the one little thing or the dozen little things. If you really sat down and thought about it, you could overwhelm all the negative experiences
with
with
all
good,
the positive. Yes.
with good ones. If you choose to find, you're just not looking. You don't want to see the good there.
Where
You want-
attention goes, energy flows. Your
Absolutely.
attention is on the negative.
What
And
you're
a huge story. The pain body has such a huge story and it's loving it. It's like
and then the egoic
partying
mind,
in that story. Oh my
Let's
God, I got all this.
back to the
I got
essence.
this on this rap sheet. I got this on his rap sheet. I got this on his rap sheet. The pain body is like dancing, having it fun.
So forgive
understand that.
yourself first. Forgive yourself first for letting this go so long, honestly. Right?
And what
Get
I would say is
get
the
back to
moment
the
you do that, your daughter, you'll have a better relationship with your daughter. She'd come to you more often. Just realize that the non-forgiveness upwards is working downwards too. That she's not forgiving you. She's looking at you as from the past. Oh my God, that mom, that terrible mom that was such a, always used to be so wrathful towards me and was so cantankerous. Why am I going to go to her house? It's going to be another cantankerous day. I'm going to have another conflict-ridden conversation. Why am I going to go? That's why she wouldn't come.
And maybe there's something to this whole nutshell of the topic today about the loving everything. I don't know where that question came from or who, but it was for you 100%. I don't know.
It was for her. It was for her.
Okay, that's beautiful. But so I just want to point this out because maybe nobody else is. So Michelle said it, Poonam said it, and maybe this just was chosen not to be heard by you. But I also seen it and I want to express it to you. We seen you go from happy to sad to very angry Do you even realize that you had this rage in you? Like everything changed.
I
I'm
got
going to tell you right
defensive.
now, your
I
aura
know, I got
went from orange
defensive.
to black.
I got
So
defensive.
if we witness this in just a half hour's time or an hour's time, there's probably moments that you are unaware of because that egoic mind still got a little bit of a grip on you through the narrative of the story that's being played out repeatedly for 50 years, has a lot of momentum that you need to change it, and you need to change it now.
The
Get
great thing is you can replay it.
right on. Get back to the presence, man. Let's get back to the basics. Focus on your presence. Focus on the three things that matter most in this world: forgiveness, surrender, acceptance. And everything you do out of compassion and love. And start with your father in the good. I don't care if it's one thing or 1,000 things, because if you really look for the good in somebody, you'll find it. Remember, everybody always says, be careful
Don't
what
know
you
what else,
Yes.
to tell you the truth, it's gonna take, because I did everything that Poonam also suggested with Ho'oponopono, imagining my father going to work on the ride
But it
home.
only
I did
takes-
that. I did forgiveness exercise. I did time thing meditation when you go to those moments and you just forgive them, and everything from that on changes. I did so many different forgiveness exercises. I really honestly truly thought I was done.
But what?
You're not done.
You're defending the story. You're defending the story right now. But it's not you. Again, I'm going to throw it out there. It's not you. That's the egoic mind.
It's depending.
So
Let me
what,
go to,
what is the difference? Just one last question. What is the difference when everyone else is sharing and talking about an experience from a child? Like when you, Poonam, talking about your mother, and I'm bringing my memory about, certain thing, why you are healed and I'm not?
I don't have a charge about it. I just relate to it. I just narrate it. I just narrate that this is the story. I mean, this is what happened during
How
that
do you
event,
know that you don't have a charge?
because I didn't get into a rage
feel it.
like you did.
But I thought
You-
when I started talking about it, I was just trying to share with.
But then
with
you went
Will.
into a rage. You went into
I
like an
didn't know
emotional.
that I had a charge to it at that point.
That's what
You went
everything
into-
is energy, honey. Everything is energy. Your thoughts are energy. Your words are energy. So everything that you say and do is putting a charge into something. The good news is that as a human being, we have a superpower, and that superpower is called choice. Really, honestly, it's our superpower. So at any moment, you mentioned something about God, but how long is this going to take? I'm already this old. I'm going to do this till I die. And what if it still don't happen? Quit going there. Quit just even thinking that that's even a possibility. It is if you allow that to happen. But you have the ability to choose right now whether or not you want to continue to suffer or you don't. And it starts with a choice. The choice to anything that comes through you negatively, dismiss it, focus on something that feels good. And if the thought is about your father and it's a bad thought and you feel sad or angry, change it immediately. What is it? You got a choice. Choose to change that negative thought about that person immediately, or shift the entire focus of the thought. I would personally probably stay on the thought. You notice I didn't tell you about my childhood when I spoke. There's a reason for that. I chose to let my childhood go. Fully accepted it as it was. And here I am smiling and I'm happy. And it's not lip service. I made a choice long ago. And the choice was to forgive, one, myself, two, the people around me that hurt me or whatever happened. And you can do the same thing. Everybody in life experiences some hardships, whether they do it in their younger years and it's unfortunate, or they can deal with it much better in their latter years. But at some point, that person, that individual has to make the choice. It's like death. You can choose to suffer one's death. And we don't do this consciously. We do it unconsciously. Sit there and suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer a person's death until we fully accept the isness of the situation. We will continue to suffer. That I know is a fact. and it has no different bearing on you in your situation. You're not special because of the things that happen to you. And I don't say this rudely. I'm saying it out of love and compassion because I want nothing more in this moment than for you to heal and be at peace the rest of your life, especially with your father. I used to cry every time I drove past any place that I worked on a job with my father. And then when them things came up, it was an opportunity for me to dissolve the bad feelings I had, or the hatred, or the sadness, whatever, but it wasn't good. It was an opportunity when them thoughts came up for me to dissolve that into the light of the consciousness. How? By accepting it and forgiving. That's the only way that happens. And so, yeah, it's going to take some time as the memories pop up about this and that, but it's only going to take one instance to forgive that man that you call your father. You don't have to play a million things out to forgive him for every single thing that he's ever done. You just make the conscious general decision to forgive your father. You don't have to forgive every little thing he's done to you. You just forgive him as the human, as the father, not knowing what he's been through. That's that little ounce of compassion Poonam is trying to tell you to find. You want to put a charge on things, make it a good one. Make it, it's, to me, it's everything is about momentum. It's one thing I finally understood, and I understood it really good because something came through me and it continues to come through me. And it's always about momentum. So in your case, the momentum has been rolling and rolling and rolling, and this big narrative has gotten huge. And it's, just like a thought, when a thought comes, it's only a split second. Now we put our focus there, and then thought becomes bigger. Well, if it's a bad thought, it's going to hurt. Then the pain body's going to go, "Ooh, that hurts." Then it's going to kick up an emotion like sadness or anger or hate. The more you focus on that thought that's causing this, the more it's going to hurt you. If you just dismiss it and get present in the moment, the thought is no longer there. Why? Because it's in the past. The past has no reality. So again, when a thought comes, take the opportunity to allow the emotion to be there fully. I'm recognizing you're there. I feel you. Go ahead, be there. Poof, it rolls out of you. And then make a conscious decision to forgive or surrender to the isness, whether it was 5 minutes ago or 50 years ago. You have to make the conscious decision to forgive him. I'll just say it right there. You have to forgive your father in order.
Caesar's become like a preacher now.
Well, I'm just piggybacking
So
up.
grateful, so eternally grateful to you, Caesar.
I'm coming
What
with-
I would say is when you're having conversations with your mother, Patricia, ask her, what was your father's life? Does she know anything about his previous life? What did he go through? So that the compassion can increase.
Bro.
So you can ask your mother, what was he like a baby? What did he undergo when he was a young kid? He would have probably, during the 30, 40 years of
I know
marriage.
that. I know a lot of stories. I know.
So then why is there no compassion? If you know the story of why your father, I know the story of why my mother is the way, why she had a heavy pain body. I know the story. So that brings compassion. And once we have the compassion, there's nothing but love for them. There's no charge.
That's a
Let
good
me go to
point.
Hugh. Let me go to Hugh. Hugh, you want to share something today, Hugh?
Well, first, Patricia, you're a brave woman.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
I mean, I've been watching you for over a year now, and you really you open up and let whatever's on your mind out, which it took me a while just to sign one. And you're throwing your just everything out there, which it's, you got to respect it. I mean, we all feel it, but when you said something about mixed messages, I got to thinking with me and my daughter, right? I come from a very unconscious world. It was pretty, like, we'll call it violent, we'll call it whatever, but I was ruled by an iron fist, and that's the only thing I knew, just work. And my daughter, I guess a couple of years ago, when I started getting mindful and whatnot, I said to her, "Hey, look, I apologize for being a suck parent." And she stopped, like, "What are you talking about?" I said, I just want to come clean that I apologize for being such a hard ass. Like Caesar was talking about being protective. I was protective. I mean, I didn't live with her, but I didn't see her as much as I should have. You know, so I'm sort of like getting it off my mind. When she looks at me and she like I'm nuts. And she says, what the hell are you talking about? She goes, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have 3 jobs. I wouldn't have bought a house at 23. I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have done. It's because of you, Dad. You know, it was like, well, what happened was she got conscious before I did.
Mm.
She was already forgiven me. And it's just like it blew me away. I'm feeling I'm carrying this guilt, you know, and I mean I've carried it a long time, man. I mean, like 20, well, long time. So you know, so I didn't get that manual on how to parent, like your dad didn't get that manual either on how to be a parent. We just sort of made it up as we went. And I thought I was doing right, you know. It was all about money and making it, and all I knew how to be is a hard ass. And you know, I would have them loving moments when we go and get an ice cream. And then, you know, and then that was about it. But the rest of it was just keeping her ass in line, you know, because I could see where she was going, you know, I could see, you know, but I was treating her like a construction worker, you know.
Oh,
You know what I mean? And she just like totally ignored all that. She remembers all the great times. And then I said, well, you know, I never been on, this is God's honest truth. I've never been on vacation ever. All right. I've been a workaholic my whole life. And I told her, I said, I'm really sorry about not taking you on vacation. She looked at me again, positive, and she says, well, it ain't like you were going on vacation without me. So, so it's like, you know, I'm not,
sounds amazing, actually. She sounds amazing.
you know, and so I was like, so it's just, I could, from a different perspective, me being the father, you know, and then Punian said earlier about, you know, maybe he had some mental disorders or whatever, what he's battling. Like Caesar said, being protective, you know, they're all the fatherly instincts, and, you know, you don't know what to do. You just act, you know, and you don't realize what you're doing because it's a reaction, and you're not really having a lot of thought behind it, you know.
But you were just hard on her, but you weren't emotionally abusive and hitting her,
No,
right?
I would never done nothing like that. No.
So
It
that's
felt like it.
different.
No, yeah, I mean, guys gotta, yeah, we never had to put our hands on.
Forgive them for they know not what they do.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta catch yourself. But yeah, I get that. So you're feeling that deep pain, you know. And then when Michelle earlier was talking about her parents, you know, going through a divorce and whatnot. And I'll bet you Michelle can relate to this. When they got divorced, I bet you were the happiest person on earth, weren't you?
No, actually, they did not get divorced.
Oh, sorry to
But it
hear
was,
that.
yeah, I would say to myself, no, I wish they would get divorced instead of having all this, you know, all the arguing all the time. As they got older, my dad had a little bit of presence power enter it, and he would go to the university. They call it cybernetics, and it was kind of like a meditative type of, you know, practice, and they would talk about these topics. And then he got into Wayne Dyer, and there was an opening there that we really connected with, and I am like so full of love for having that presence in my life, and that opening, because that was kind of like the doorway I stepped through and just continued, you know, more than he ever could. But always understood that there, you know, it's that generation, and it was the circumstances under which he grew up and what he was faced with. You know, his parents immigrated, and then he had to immigrate, and then my grandparents had to immigrate again. And it's a hard life. Those struggles, right? You're dealing with that. And then you're dealing with the pressures of kids and their school. I mean, there's so much. And one thing I just wanted to say, Patricia, is that you had mentioned something about my father is so intelligent. Intelligence has nothing to do with this. His level of academic intelligence or his business proficiency has nothing, absolutely no bearing whatsoever on any type of emotional intelligence that comes through some kind of you know, self-reflection, right? Or wisdom that comes acquired through these practices that we do. That wasn't alive in him, right? He just didn't have it in him. Maybe he needs another incarnation, 2, 3, 4, who knows, right? So when we say, well, he's so intelligent, you know, we got to really
I kind of
measure.
wanted him at some point to be like Einstein, because Einstein was very intelligent, but he also had an incredible understanding spiritual of the universe. And I thought that my father had maybe not as great as Einstein, but had some kind of capacity, because I saw him as a brilliant man. He was like
Discrepancy between
engineer.
reality and your expectation, the
Yeah.
pain gap. You're expecting, and this is reality, the pain gap. There's a gap. My mother was not
Disappointed.
so,
Yes, I'm
my mother
disappointed.
was, but those are stories, Patricia. Those are stories. Those are stories the ego wants to make. And it's getting close to almost 10 o'clock for you. You need to go to bed. So
Yeah.
we meet again next week. We can talk again. I know it's East Coast for Michelle, Patricia, and Caesar.
Thank you. I
Caesar,
really appreciate for your guys. Thank you so much.
you're most welcome. Caesar, you came with a big bang. This was a big bang explosion, inflation of the big bang.
I got my
You hit it out of the park.
ego
So I'm
whooped. My ego got whooped. Whooped with
I'm really grateful to be here. I mean, honestly, I missed you guys so much. I thought about you guys every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Most of the time I slept right through the session because I didn't even know what day it was. I'll make a commitment, and I hope to be here every week. I love you guys.
welcome back.
Caesar, where you been?
Pardon me?
Where have you been?
So I've got some things going on with my throat,
Oh,
my chest, my respiratory, but I'm good and I'm healthy.
All right,
good. Glad to hear it.
Fantastic.
Oh,
Wishing you a speedy recovery, Caesar.
I'm already recovered. Thank you. Patricia, can I contact you tomorrow?
Say it again.
Can I
Contact
contact
you.
you tomorrow through Messenger or something?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Everybody have a wonderful evening or day, whatever it is, wherever you're at.
Have a fantastic
Welcome.
evening, everyone. Many blessings.
Thank
Much
you.
love.
Thank you.
Bye. Good
Bye.
night. Thanks. Bye.